All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Fall 2020 DiabetesMine Innovation Days, our Fall 2020 D-Data ExChange. So for those who may not know me by now, I am Amy Tenderich. I'm a journalist, blogger, patient advocate, and digital health consultant. And I started the first DiabetesMine Innovation Summit back in 2011. And then we kicked off the first ever DiabetesMine D-Data ExChange Technology Forum in fall 2013 with the help of some enterprising people in this community, notably the folks from Tidepool. And that became the birthplace of the We're Not Waiting movement. So D-Data is now a biannual gathering that brings together movers and shakers in data-driven diabetes care. And the aim is really to connect the people behind the enterprising We're Not Waiting movement with established leadership in medical technology and digital health to spark change. So we really appreciate you all being here with us, even as we all await the definitive results of the US election. We think it's an important time to concentrate on the future of healthcare and diabetes care. So as you know, we've come a long way in diabetes technology over the past decades, with the pace of change actually becoming exponential right around the time that I was diagnosed, so in 2003. So lucky for me, and I am now personally one of thousands of people using Loop with Dexcom and Omnipod actually. And like all of these others, I have found it to be a life changer. But of course, having an early closed loop system is not an end, it's just a beginning. So we still have a long way to go to work out the kinks and to improve on these systems. And it's really great to see industry working on commercial versions of these systems, and also equally great to see the DIY spirit and energy continue in this community, because the choices that they make often lead the industry to understand what patients want and what they need. So we at DiabetesMine have been privileged to help be a catalyst for all of this over the years. As noted, we kicked off the first D-Data as a small gathering at Stanford School of Medicine in 2013, and it has grown and flourished, leading all the way up to our closed loop system showcase last fall, where we were able to host 6 of the major players who are working on these systems and presented their systems, and actually had patients using the systems present to talk about their real life experiences. And we're excited to bring you all together today to continue the momentum, of course. So yesterday at the Innovation Summit, we took a deep dive into telemedicine and whole person care, and also into the issue of better embracing and better serving people of color in the diabetes world. Whoops. We also had a chance to collectively try our hand at helping a patient in a real world scenario. We love putting people in the driver's seat and then seeing what they do. And we're going to continue with that a little bit today. Today, of course, we're going to turn our attention to these core questions that always drive the choices for the D-Data program. So what is the D-Data community up to, and how are new challenges being met? So we have an amazing lineup for you, starting with the future of CGM, and then leading into some intriguing work in the DIY community, and what is new at the FDA branch that governs diabetes devices. And of course, our popular demo lineup of some of the hottest new players out there. So the demos today range from a new non-invasive CGM to apps that predict glucose levels and guide patients to smart lifestyle choices. We're also excited in particular to have the Ypsomed pump folks with us today after pursuing them for quite some time. So welcome to all of our demoers. And we're going to get another chance, as I mentioned, to work interactively with the folks at our tables. So we're going to ask you all to get creative about designing a CGM a little later this morning. So keep the coffee coming. And as we mentioned yesterday, those who stick with us till the end of the program are in for a treat. We have some free healthy products for you to try from Real Good Foods and Tita's Tea, because breakfast is still the most important meal of the day. So we hope you all had some to get fueled. Oops. Of course, huge thanks to our sponsors for making all of this possible, starting with Dexcom, with their CGM technology that has really helped start this whole revolution. They've been our ongoing gold sponsor, and we cannot thank them enough for investing in this community. Also, our silver sponsors, huge thank you to Lilly Diabetes, Omnipod, OneDrop, and Sanofi. You can click on all of their logos in the platform today, including Dexcom and all of our silver sponsors, to learn more about these supporters. We'd also like to thank our bronze sponsors, Bigfoot Biomedical, January AI, and Glytech. In addition, a big thank you to this amazing group of advisors who are always at the ready to discuss hot topics and share their knowledge and ideas. Thank you to all of these folks. In particular, a shout out to Anna McAllister-Slip, who helped prepare the sessions for yesterday and today. Thank you so much for being an ally. And speaking of allies, for those of you who missed the introduction yesterday, I'm going to go through a few folks that we'd like to thank as a point of tradition, starting with a shout out to these organizations in the diabetes world who've been great allies to our DiabetesMine Innovation Project over the years. And a reminder of kind of who's in the house registered for our program for these 2 days. This is all the folks represented on top of the organizations that I already mentioned as sponsors and supporters. And again, we're excited to bring you all together. So before we get started, a quick orientation or a reminder for those of you who were already with us yesterday about how the Remo platform works. So you've already figured out that you can, when you click in, you can double click on any table to sit there, and any table with open seats, including the lounge tables at the right. And you can move around tables just by double clicking. There is also a second floor. So in case we needed overflow space or you want to meet someone at a higher number table, that floor plan looks exactly like this one. So whenever no one is presenting, you can video chat with others at your table. And of course, right now, because I'm presenting, your camera and mic are disabled. So while presentations are going on, you can use the chat function, which I'll show you in a moment. One thing that I neglected to mention yesterday was the tile view. So whenever you are at your table and you're chatting with people, if you want to expand the view from those tiny little windows, you click on tile view in the lower left, and it will make the tiles bigger. So it's a better way for our interactive program. You may also want to play with the whiteboard function there as well. It gives you and your table a sort of a sandbox to play around and share ideas. Important thing to note, of course, is this little icon in the upper right when people are presenting. It allows you to expand the slides and the presentations. So you can see it at full screen. Just be aware that if you want to get back into the chat function, you need to escape out of this view. And speaking of chatting, there are two ways to chat generally, the general chat that everyone will see, and then you can private chat people by clicking their name in the participants list and clicking on the little icon that allows you to chat with them. If you want to pose any questions to the presenters while they're on stage, please use this Q&A tab to the far right. It will light up in green, and that's where you can post your questions, and we can also upvote questions there as well. Should you have any trouble with your audio or video while you're in the program, the first thing to try is just to double click on another table and sort of reset your icon. We have an FAQ and a whole how to use Remo guide at our D-Data ExChange site that you can also look at. And if you need help, if you get kicked out of the program or having trouble logging back in, you can reach out to Robin Smiley, our event manager, or Gary Borg, who is with Remo, who is also behind this little need help icon at the lower left. And the names and contacts of these folks are also in the email that you received to log in for the event. So now I am thrilled to say that we have with us Kevin Sayer, fearless leader of Dexcom, to kick off the day. Kevin was formerly CFO of MiniMed from 1994 until its acquisition by Medtronic in 2001. At Dexcom, he is, of course, responsible for all aspects from R&D, manufacturing, to sales and marketing, and, of course, new directions for innovation. So given Dexcom's leadership in this space, there's really no one more qualified to talk about the future of CGM. And we're really excited to hear from him. And I also must say that we're very appreciative that Kevin and his team made a concerted effort to find out what this D-Data community in particular would want to know from Dexcom. So he's really going to be addressing our concerns directly. And we're excited to hear from him now. All right. A huge thank you to Kevin for his candor there. Now we're going to bring him up. There he is.
Hi.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
So our Q&A box is lighting up here. I think you may have addressed some of this, but let's go through it nevertheless. The things that got upvoted in first place here is any advice on how we as a community can help Dexcom get the real-time API approved and deployed?
I think at this point in time, we filed it with the agency. There's so much going on at the FDA with COVID right now. I'm sure they'll prioritize it as they can. If you want to reach out and write them, that's fine. But I don't know that would help. If anything, it might just create more work. They know what a priority this is for us and for the community. I think we just have to give it time and wait. We're in a very strange time right now, and putting too much pressure there, I don't think does us any good.
Okay, thank you. So I believe we talked about this a little bit, but it's still the second most upvoted question here is, I'd love the Dexcom API to be open globally. Any view on when that will happen in Europe and elsewhere with the same terms as currently in the United States?
I don't have a time frame for that. I do know that as we look at the global business, and particularly the global data and data privacy side, that the rules are tough and it is different. So I don't have a timeline. We're not prohibiting the company from opening the API up globally. We haven't even opened live API up in the US yet. So I guess just give it a little bit. But that's certainly on the agenda.
Yeah, well, as you know, this community is anxious. They're also asking specifically, would Dexcom be willing to make a commitment to kind of working alongside We're Not Waiting developers to implement such APIs and open source software?
We've talked about that in the past, and you probably need to talk to people more technical in the organization than me. And we've talked about things like having community conferences and things like that. We really haven't executed on because we've gone so fast just keeping up with everything. I think that's something we could consider and work on. I don't have a problem with that. Let me put it this way: I'm much more mature about this than I was when we first met, Amy.
Okay.
I'll just leave it at that.
We appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you. Again, a related question about whether G7 will continue to be available for DIY use to keep options available for users and help drive innovation.
Well, I would hope someday as we come up with an actual regulated, approved structure to whereby we can have it open. Right now, we haven't closed it. We haven't put security in to shut it off and keep it. We could. We have not been asked to by the agency or anybody else, so we've left things kind of status quo. I think at some point in time we need rules around this because there is a business risk to us and there's a risk to patients and to this community if we do something in the software that you don't know about or understand, and vice versa. So maybe over time the best vision is to have an open platform that's regulated by where we can do that.
Okay, but if I get you right, you're saying it'll be sort of unchanged in terms of from G6 to G7 on that front.
As I sit here today, yes. And
okay.
If rules and regulators tell us we have to close it down, we will.
All right, gotcha. Speaking of rules and regulations, people ask, how can you elaborate on different privacy rules and how that makes it harder to expand API access outside the US? This is Mikhail. He says, I thought the GDPR compliance OpenAI would be easier than closed partnerships.
Well, given our actual real life experiences in Germany with GDPR and the things that have been made issues by people in the German community, for example, that really aren't, we're very cautious. The last thing I want to do is go fight a battle that costs us hundreds of thousands of euros, which we have, over things that are not issues. So before we go there, we're going to think it out and make sure that we're in a good position. For this community, you guys, they would love that. And there are competitive forces in all fairness out there. If we open that API, that would turn around and find ways to turn us into the GDPR, and I get to spend hundreds of thousands of euros defending something I did on behalf of benefiting a community. So we're gonna balance that and be very deliberate.
Okay, thank you. This is an interesting question from Gary Shiner. What are your plans for software to derive meaningful clinical insights from the data, like revealing patterns of cause and effect relationships? I guess he means on a population level. Yeah.
We've started some pop health work. Gary, I think there's a level of technology and a level of analytics that we've touched the surface of, but we have not really committed investment to. I talked a little earlier about where we spend our dollars, and we've spent the majority of our dollars getting the physical product actually on your body and working the way it's supposed to work over the past several years. I think on the analytics side, there's a lot of work to do. I think others can probably do some of that better than we can. And we need to create an environment where we encourage them to look at the data. We talk to many of the sophisticated analytics people. I've been blown away by several apps that I've seen they're just concepts, but things that people have shown me they've learned about nutrition and across the board, people are discovering incredible things and utility with glucose values. But I think it'll be a combination of us going deeper on the analytics side and making more investment, but making the data available to others, and then figuring out a way to get that to clinicians to whereby they don't have to open 50,000 apps to get that one piece of data that they want.
Yeah, that's what I always say. Integration. Yeah, this one just got upvoted a bit more, so I'd like to see it. This is kind of a blue sky question. So if your research development, if your R&D budget doubled, what would you prioritize next that you currently cannot?
Well, that's a good question.
Did we stump you?
No, we debate this continually. I'd spend a lot of money on analytics and software. Personally, I think we can, if I allocated to percentages, I'd probably spend 30% on new sensor technology and making more sensors, another 40% on software experiences, because I think we can be better with patients and with our partners, and then another 30% on analytics. One of the things I talked about in my prepared remarks is automating some of the things are such hassles for everybody, like automated reordering from the app. But we should have that. And we're working on projects of that nature, automated tech support on easy questions. Gee, it appears your sensor just failed. Maybe we should just send you a new one, hit a button and it comes. And I think there's some experiences we've been so focused on the technology. There's some things that we've taken for granted that are just really hard for all of you and for us to deal with on the inside. So I think that software piece, and then the analytics, what we could learn about patients. I've often theorized if we took everybody's data and studied it for 6 months, we could probably predict what's going to happen on an individual basis even better than we do on the group basis. So I would spend on those three things. There are sensor improvements I'd make and things that want to finalize on the sensor side. Mainly, fairness, cost reductions, and speed to market and simplification of manufacturing. And then on the software and then just these advanced analytics that we just don't have enough of yet.
All right. This one, something I'm sure you are doing, but maybe people want some details. Is Dexcom planning any research to better understand and address issues for those who have frequent inaccurate readings and sensor failures, and I guess dropped signal as well?
Well, those are all different problems. Every one of those is a different problem. With respect to drop signal, that's very much a function of Bluetooth technology, and that's a function of our transmission, but also of the device that receives it. One of my most interesting experiences early on, we all assume every phone's the same, and they're not. Every iPhone isn't the same. Some have been dropped 60 gazillion times by a teenager, and no matter what you do, that signal's not going to be consistent. And I actually, early in the days, literally spent 5 days with a mother who was an attorney at a very large corporation threatening to shut us down because her son's phone wouldn't work. We finally got her to put the app on her husband's phone, and it worked perfectly, but she only wanted her son's phone. I offered to buy a new phone personally for her. We eventually got it worked out, and actually she offered to to be a warrior, a Dexcom warrior, and speak on our behalf when we were all done. So connectivity, there are things we can do. We work with the large Bluetooth entities out there to improve the signal. We have better chips in design and coming. I think we'll have better solutions on the connectivity side. With respect to sensor failures, a lot of sensor failures, or some of them, we shut them off. Again, to meet ICGM standards and keep them accurate. Other times, they do just fail. We continually improve our algorithm to try and diagnose those failure modes and what happens and eliminate some. We have for example, we have a new algorithm sitting at the FDA right now that eliminates a lot of the sensors that shut off, and we've launched that in Canada on a trial basis and seen a great improvement in reliability. As far as inaccuracies, we do the best we can. We've had improved accuracy over time. The rate of complaints on accuracy is much, much lower than it's ever been. The fact is, physiology, it's just difficult. And sometimes things work different in your body when you insert it in a wound site than you'd planned. But we're looking at things at all those. And as I said earlier, if we can get rid of those sensors that you talked about, great inaccuracies that are way too low or way too high, and keep them in the middle, that's really our primary accuracy goal right now.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm going to wrap up with two kind of design questions here. First of all, do you have any plans to measure analytes beyond glucose, like insulin, ketones, or if so, what would you prioritize?
We do. We are studying this right now. We are trying to figure out the business case for it. In all fairness, I don't think we've come close to unlocking the value of glucose as a measure across healthcare. I think there are all sorts of things we can learn as I speak with physicians outside of endocrinologists, or again with some of the people at the payers as we've gone through COVID. I actually wore a lactic acid sensor that the guys developed. I wouldn't be in the trial because they didn't want to stick my finger several times, but I wore it to see what would happen with my own exercise, and actually it worked really well. But then we have to figure out how many of these we would sell and what the use would be. So we do believe our platform could measure other analytes. We've got to figure out what our business case is. So stay tuned on that. That's kind of in the future.
All right. Okay, I'm going to sneak this one in, and then we're going to end with the design question. So will partnerships for the live API be nonprofit, or will you be considering charging for the user to share their own data?
I don't know what policy they've landed on. I personally don't view this as a moneymaker, as something that is going to be a profitability driver that we want to charge a bunch of money for. There may come a day when the model changes where we charge almost much less for the sensors and charge more for the data. This is something that's going to evolve over time. But I hope we can get it out there to as many people as we can in the environment where we can use it.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this is a perfect ending to our discussion, leading into our next section. This person says, would love to see a CGM whose graph is designed to span 365, 24/7, the way people would like to depend on it. It says, does it compete with the sensor for all? I think they're talking about the more commercial version that would be for non-diabetics, sort of whether that will be designed differently.
Well, let's, I think any graph or any software use that you guys, or any imagery or user interface that you guys come up with that would be interesting, we'd be happy to look at it and consider it as we're designing new apps. I love looking at this kind of stuff. I also very often get told my ideas are not very good, so we'll put it back. As far as the sensor for all, I think that is a good question. And then we'll end on this, because the sensor for all, again, you're back to the experience that somebody needs and what will engage them and evolve them. We've done a tremendous amount of work in sensing in the non-intensive insulin use community to decide what those use cases are and what other people would need and what they would want to see. For example, to a lot of those patients, daily time in range is a lot more important than specific highs or lows. Coaching opportunities, not real coaching, but acknowledging, here's how you usually are, but something really big happened today. What'd you do? And things of those nature. So I do believe there will be different experiences over time. I honestly believe there's different experiences within the intensive insulin use community. Some of our patients don't want all the things that we offer. Some of them want a whole bunch more. And what I'd really like to be able to do is have a software platform over time where you can pick and choose those things that will engage and invite you to use the technology and have the best outcome that you can. And then we figure out how to make that work from a business perspective and how much we charge. So
awesome. Well, that's a perfect segue into our next section where we're going to ask people to get active on thinking through new designs for CGM. So thank you so much for your time and effort, Kevin. Thank you for being here. And I hope you'll
for having
what people come up with.
Well, no, I can't wait to see. And we probably got some people of our own people there who will design things that we haven't necessarily picked up on our own. But look, we're proud to sponsor this. I think it's a great group, and the innovation here is awesome. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Okay.